Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's Seed World Canada webinar. This is exciting, something different. This is our most scorching webinar of the season. I'm your host, Mark Zinkowitz. I'm Senior Editor for Seed World Canada. And today we're diving headfirst into the fiery world of seed regulatory modernization. But like I said, this isn't your typical SRM webinar where we watch slideshows and we talk about, the intricacies of seed regulatory policy, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to do something really fun today and at the same time talk about SRM, but just try and do it in a different way to get people engaged and to, like I say, have a little bit of fun. This is a showdown of wit, knowledge, and taste buds. I'm with Doug Miller, Executive Director of the Canadian Seed Growers Association. Hi, Doug. How are you? I think you might be muted. There we go.
I'm doing great, Mark. I'm a little terrified of all of this.
Well, I know I'm a little bit shaky too. I'm nervous about these hot sauces, but like I say, it's going to be very, very interesting. I'm glad you could join us today. Like I say, you are Executive Director for Canadian Seed Growers Association. I'm sure pretty much everybody who's watching today knows that. But the idea here is for me to pose some tough questions to you about this whole SRM thing that everybody's been hearing about for years now. So as our audience might know, the CSGA has some big plans for its SRM vision, including becoming the main administrator of Canada's seed certification system. SRM, like I say, has been going on for a while now, but I think, and that's the reason for this webinar today, I think we finally arrived at a place where I wanted to ask you some big questions in regards to CSGA's vision. CSGA has not been shy about saying we want to play a bigger role in Canada's seed system. CSGA you believe that you should be at the helm of seed certification in Canada. It's a big vision. And again, like I say, I wanted to ask you some really tough, kind of no nonsense questions here today as CSGA aspires to play an even bigger role in Canada's seed system than it's played over the last 120 years. And another big reason for this webinar today is, as our audience knows, or if they don't know, that's probably what we wanted to do too, is let them know that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, CFIA, recently released its winter SRM survey. We're going to put up a link right now to that. That's the winter SRM survey that you can go and you can fill that out. The questions I'm going to ask you today, Doug, are in regards to CSGA's responses to those surveys. You have a document, and we'll put a link up in a bit to that as well. CSGA has released a document with its responses to all those survey questions that people can go read, find out what CSGA thinks about that. But again, the webinar today is not to say that you should read CSGA's responses and then fill out the survey the way CSGA did. This is for people to know about the survey. Go fill out the survey based on your own opinion. But at the same time, we are going to talk with you, Doug, about CSGA's vision for this whole SRM thing, and then hopefully just educate people in general about this whole topic and get some discussion going. So, Doug, are you ready for what we're going to be doing here today?
I am ready, Mark. I do like some hot sauce, and I love SRM even more. Like you said, we're nearing the halfway point, and again, we're really excited about sharing our vision with you today.
Now, you mentioned the hot sauces, Doug, and I'm sure everybody who registered read about this on the registration page, so they're kind of familiar with what we're going to do today. But I'll just go over it quickly. I'm wearing my special hot pepper t-shirt here. And what we're going to do, we have 9 hot sauces from a company in Prince Edward Island that you can Google. They're called Maritime Madness. And we've got 9 of their hot sauces. This whole webinar was inspired by, there's a YouTube show, it's called Hot Ones. You can Google that as well. And what they do on this Hot Ones show is they do an interview and they taste hot sauces before every question to kind of spice things up a bit, make things a little bit more challenging. And so that's what we're going to do. All these hot sauces come from Maritime Madness and PEI. One we're going to start with is East Coast Wing. So that's the first one we're going to go with here. And before each question, we're going to taste this. And so I just want our audience to know, as we go along here, if you have a question, a spicy question that you want to ask, type it into the chat box. Again, the whole idea today is to ask spicy questions, tough questions. So if you want to do it anonymously, you can do that by, when you go to your chat box there, it'll allow you to select. You can aim your question to everybody in the room, and then that way everybody in the chat room will see your name with your question. What you can also do is select to admin only, and then that won't go to the general public chat room. It'll just come to us, the administrators, so we'll see your question, and it won't go to the general chat. So you have that option as well if you wish to use it. And just so everyone knows, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website in the coming hours. That's seedworld.com/Canada. But if you registered for this webinar, which you obviously did because you're watching it, you'll get an email with all that information. So you don't have to worry about that. All right. Well, should we get started here, Doug?
Let's get started, Mark.
All right. The first sauce, East Coast Wing. Cheers. This is the first of our 9 sauces. It's based on the cayenne pepper, which is a pretty spicy pepper. So here we go. I'm going to apply a little bit to my wing, and let's see what happens here. All right, cheers, Doug.
Mark. That's a nice one. Let's start it off. That's a good one.
It's a little bit of a tang to it. It's definitely not scorching hot, so that's good. I'm got a bit of a zing, but I'm encouraged because I'd be a little bit nervous if the first sauce was like really, really hot. So that's just a nice amount of spice. That's very enjoyable. So, all right, Doug, I want to talk about. Okay.
Mark, this is not a good sign. You're already falling apart on us.
It's really not that bad. It's not. It just kind of hits you in the throat after a minute. So, all right, Doug, I want to talk about CSGA administration. CSGA has been clear about this for a long time now. CSGA wants to be the main administrator of Canada's seed certification system. And you want to take stuff off of CFIA's plate, right? You want to take on work from CFIA. That includes the entire business of seed certification in Canada. And at the same time, you want to develop a digital end-to-end seed certification system. Now, the thing is, looking at your website, CSGA has like a dozen employees. You know, you're a pretty small organization. CSGA does not have its own skyscraper in downtown Ottawa that says CSGA at the top. You don't own a big office tower that's loaded with floor after floor of employees. You got 12 people. So how exactly does CSGA expect to execute on this big vision you have with a dozen people in your office? Go.
So, Mark, so much for law balls, eh? I thought the questions were supposed to match the spice, but it's a really good question, you know. And at CSGA we have a small but mighty staff, and it's a great honor to be able to serve them alongside them, and work with our board of directors. And our board, yeah, there we go, a little spice in the back of the throat,
a little bit.
And so with this, I think we really have to go back to basics here. So yes, CSGA is a small organization, but it's one that really relies on grassroots participation. And we have for the last 100 and so years. So when you look at what CSGA is, because I think there's some, in some quarters, a little bit of misunderstanding of who actually CSGA is. Well, CSJ is Canada's National Seed Crop Certification Authority. We are a co-regulator with the Government of Canada. So we're not just another industry association. We have delegated authority that's been given to us by the Government of Canada in the Federal Seeds Act to do what we do, set standards and deliver a national program for certification. So as an organization that has like a laser focus on seed and seed certification, when we take a step back at SRM and we think about where we as an organization can provide the greatest value to the sector and to Canadian ag at large, because seed certification is a public good service. It really comes down to two areas, like you said. So the first one is CSJ, our role evolving to become that main administrator of Canada's seed certification system. So really taking on the day-to-day work of seed certification. CFI, like you said, has a long laundry list of things to do. Are we able to free up their resources to be able to focus on the things that they're going to have the biggest positive impact on? And the second one is that digital single window that we've talked about. And so, as an organization, we've punched above our weight class for many, many years. You don't have to look back too far in the rearview mirror when you have a system like alternative service delivery. So for those of you who don't know, back in 2012, there was a budget bill and we looked at privatizing crop inspection. At the time, CSJ was the small organization that we were. We didn't even have an IT department, but yet we embarked on a vision to be able to transform how seed crops are certified in Canada. We went from certification decisions taking 3 to 4 weeks to taking hours now with our new digital system. And so as an organization, when we look towards the future, when we look towards what we're talking about here, it's really about leveraging that digital foundation that we've built to be able to drive us forward. How can we optimize the whole business process of seed certification? So what we're talking about here is not just copying, replacing the existing processes that, have worked over the last number of years, but it's really dissecting those business processes to be able to optimize them. And so, as an organization, we've really embraced digital tools. We have a lot of automated processes going behind the scenes. When you look at CSJ, you don't really think about that. But again, there's a big effort here with what we're talking about, where digitization is really going to propel us forward. And so but you can only optimize for so long. So as an organization, as part of this vision, in some time, we're going to have to hire some additional bodies. Like you said, 12 people, it's a very big country. We take a national approach. So obviously we're going to have to look at something like that. So, we will be looking at making some key hires, potentially, if we're able to realize this vision in the areas that we serve. And some of this is about, bringing on extra capacity, but some of it is just simply about business continuity and succession planning. That's something as an organization we're really prioritizing. So for us, when we look at the future, we think that CSJ is very well positioned to be able to leverage our strengths to be able to take on this ambitious vision.
Now, I'm glad you talked about hiring new people, because that's going to lead me into my next question. But we're going to do second hot sauce now. So we've got here, this is Fiery Chipotle. Again, this is based on the cayenne pepper. This is supposedly a little bit hotter than the last one, but considering we have 7 more to go after this, I'm hoping it's not going to be too wild. So
which one do you have, Mark? Can you hold it up?
This one right here, Fiery Chipotle.
Okay.
It's got the, on the side there, it says simple on the side, and then it says Fiery Chipotle. There's 2 simples. There's the ghost pepper and there's the chipotle. So
perfect. Well, we don't want to get the ghost peppers right now because
I'm going to put a little bit extra of this one on. Okay, so cheers. Here we go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the heat skin turned up a little bit. I can feel that one.
Yeah, that one actually takes a bit longer to come on. And that's what's so deceiving about spicy food is the first few seconds, it's like, and then it just kind of builds, right? So Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, the heat's getting dialed up, but again, it's not unmanageable, so that's good. Okay, so Doug, you mentioned hiring new people. This was a question that came in. It starts with a statement. Your proposal would presumably transfer costs traditionally being paid by general tax revenue directly to seed growers now paying the cost of these employees. That's this person's opinion. Now, Doug, you just said you're going to hire more staff. You're going to continue to build your seed cert platform to be able to take on all this extra work. Now, obviously, government just isn't going to give you a bunch of money to hire new people. Otherwise, they would just keep doing this themselves, right? They're looking to download this, and so you're going to hire new people. And this brings to the question part of this person's question: how much might the costs to seed growers and seed companies increase under CSGA's vision? So two-parter. Your proposal would, again, in this person's opinion, your proposal would presumably transfer costs being paid by general tax revenue right now directly to seed growers who will now be paying the cost of these employees. How much might the cost to seed growers and seed companies go up under this vision of yours?
Okay.
Go, Doug.
All right. We're going right after the jugular here early on. Good. I like this. This is spicy. So in order to answer that question, we need to first take a step back. And so in Canada, we operate a national seed crop certification system. So unlike the US, we take a national approach where there's one organization that does the work. It's really worked well, but it's also extremely cost effective. So when we look at like the total value of our seed and our seed certification industry here in Canada, it's like 3.2 billion, but we're able to operate a national seed crop certification program for less than 0.1%. So again, it all adds up at the end of the day. But what we have in Canada is a really efficient and effective model at being able to deliver seed certification. And so when we look at seed certifications around the world, and this is something that I have had a lot of opportunities to do, is, CSGA and Canada's seed system is actually an international outlier, where we have the division of labor kind of split right down the middle, where CSGA is responsible for the seed crop certification side of things, and CFI is ultimately responsible for the seed certification side. Okay. And so because we're not able to take a holistic view of seed certification in Canada, we actually have an outlier of a fee model where we're asking seed growers and seed companies to be able to pay for the whole system, well, most of the whole system up front in terms of membership fees and acres fees. So what we're talking about with this proposal is really a paradigm shift, where we're going to start to look like other jurisdictions, where we're actually charging the fees to be able to support the public good sector of seed certification towards the back end. Looking at quantity of seed certified, so whenever you're actually getting value out of the product, you're actually paying for the product. And again, this is aligned with what we're seeing in other jurisdictions. So our vision is being able to take a holistic approach to seed certification in Canada. So, I was in one meeting many years ago, and we were talking about fees. What is the cost of fees? And one of the growers who, doesn't really say much, he stood up in the back of the room. And he says, I literally spend more money on bags to put my seed in than certification. What are we talking about here? So when we look at, yes, what we're talking about here may result in certain areas or certain crop kinds or certain things paying a little bit more. I think we can realize that everything and all the work that we do, costs are going up. But to think that, when we look at this, we need to also recognize like the value of what we're proposing. So we're talking about, through our proposal, being able to have an industry-led, government-enabled system. What does that mean? Well, we take away the day-to-day work of seed certification out of government. We empower industry to be able to do that work. Like that to me is priceless. Being able to, again, have as an industry to be able to control our own destiny there, have an industry-led system that we're able to kind of draw this forward. So when we look at, additional services that CSJ may provide in the future, we're going to be looking at being cost recovery there. But again, let's go back to digitization, because again, this is where I think we're going to be able to leverage, again, our strengths to be able to have a really cost-effective model, because that is really in our mission statement, is to deliver a national cost-effective model. So this is always top of mind for us. But, many years ago, whenever we were going through the Seed Synergy process, there was a report that was commissioned. And in there, we talked about, the value of having a digital single window and other concepts like the variety profile platform. That report indicated to us that there would be, in terms of cost savings, in terms of reduced administrative burden, in terms of all that red tape that we all get frustrated with on a day-to-day basis, that would save our sector in terms of time and resources about $1.5 to $2.5 million a year. So again, when we look at cost, let's look at the direct cost, but then also the indirect cost. So what we're talking about here is creating a streamlined, simplified seed certification process where you're not bouncing around. Again, you're going to one body to get the job done. Yes, there may be other bodies behind the scenes doing different parts of the work, but again, that digital single window is really going to drive us forward. Now, as an organization, we're really committed to sustainable budgets and operational efficiencies. Our board, through our new business plan, has challenged us to be able to go out there and explore non-traditional revenue. So we're not going back to the seed growers or the seed companies to be able to fund CSJ's work. So we've launched new programs like CSJ Learn, CSJ Health, and even some consulting business to be able to bring new revenue into our system, so that we're not looking at just taxing the seed space. And so that would obviously continue. In the past, we've been able to get a lot of success, being able to leverage government funds through programs like Agri Assurance to be able to get the job done. And so we would see that continue. Are we able to turn 25 cents on a dollar into funding program to be able to have a really best-in-class seed certification system in Canada that is industry-led? That is huge. And let's not get caught up in a one or two FTEs. Let's get back to the value of if we're able as a sector to be able to have administrative oversight and control into how the system is working. And again, this is industry. This is something that as we move forward, it's about having those discussions about how we can get this. But again, for us, this is a once in a generation time to be able to really seize that future. So let's get at it. Okay,
well, you heard it here first, folks. If CSJ's vision comes to fruition and you're not going to get seed companies and seed growers, I understand from you, Doug, will not get a bill in the mail, time to pay your CSGA bill. It's a little more complicated than that.
Well, it is a complicated thing, Mark. But again, let's look at the value at the end of the day. And I'll say this, whenever CSGA goes about fees, there's a public consultation about it. It's not just a boardroom decision to say, these are our new fees for this year. We take a public consultation approach where the whole industry is consulted. It's not just seed growers and it's not just this. We actually ask for feedback. And so it's a very open and transparent process. And this is really about the leadership style we'd like to be able to see in our seed system of tomorrow.
All right, next sauce, number 3, we've got Fire Candy Jalapeno. That's your green bottle, Doug.
And I will admit, Mark, this is one where I saw it in the box and I took it out, and I've actually been having this like all week. This is a great sauce.
Well, I, for the record, have not tried any of these yet, so I am going into this completely unaware. So here we go, Doug. I'm trusting you that it's a good sauce, so let's try this. That is really good, Doug. You're right. Wow, it's got a nice jalapeno flavor to it. It doesn't have like a process. It's got like definitely Mm-hmm.
And on the back, it says, put it into your lemonade or cocktail for an unforgettable drink. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe this is the new taste of the summer for you, Mark.
I can see that. Okay. So in this digital age we live in now, everybody's always talking about trust, transparency, privacy of data. It's always an issue.
Yeah.
So this question, why should I trust CSGA to manage my data? So in your own survey document, Doug, with CSGA's responses to the survey, you say, and I quote, a key component of CSGA's digital vision is security, data privacy, and process transparency. So yeah, I'll put that question to you. Why should I trust CSGA to take this on and manage my data?
Yeah. So whenever you talk about, like you quote that sentence there from our business plan, when we look at privacy, transparency, those are table stakes when we look at a digital future. And those are really table stake items that we've been trying to bring to the SRM process, and we've been implementing at CSGA for the last number of years. So again, going back to CSGA and our role in the system, it's, we're here to be able to provide a public good service. We are a co-regulator with the government of Canada to be able to deliver Canada's seed certification program. So again, there's no ulterior motives here. So let's take off those tinfoil hats here today, and let's really talk about trust in digital platforms. CSJ is a high trust organization. When we look at our members, survey after survey that comes out, that seed growers and farmers are high trusted individuals. They are the stewards of the CSGA. When we look at CSGA as a co-regulator, a lot of trust in government. We've been putting our work boots on day in, day out for the last 100 years, trying to be that model employee, coming to the table with solutions like what we're seeing here versus just, saying it's broken. I don't know how you're going to fix it, but fix it. And so this is, this has also led to, trust. And again, internationally, we spend a lot of time on international harmonization, trying to be a leading voice for Canada at forums like AOSCA or in a supporting capacity at organizations like the OECD seed schemes. So as an organization, our foundation is trust. But we know that trust takes a long while to build. We've been building it up for the last 100 years. But what we don't want to see is that trust go away, because we know it can fall apart if you're not taking steps. And so one kind of sentence that really resonates with me is transparency by default. And I heard one of the past CFIA presidents say this at a meeting I was at. And it really struck me as that's what we're trying to do at CSJ, is be transparent by default. So again, we're a trusted regulatory partner looking to be able to continue to digitize, a system we've already had in place for 10 plus years, no concerns. Again, we're looking at building off that trust. And so when we look towards the future, we know we need to be more transparent. We need to be more open. So that's why we proposed in that same one pager that CSGA would work through an advisory committee to be able to develop, an ag data transparency certification to really unpack, what is the data that CSGA is collecting? How are we using it? Where is it being stored? What is it not being used for? Because we're asking for the sector's trust. We're asking for the general ag sector's trust. And so we think that we're well positioned in our co-regulatory model and our role to be able to take this next step in the evolution of Canada's seed certification system. And trust is a big driver. So if there's any concerns, let's talk about them. Let's raise them. You have concerns about X, Y, or Z. Our door is always open. We want to be able to talk with this, because if we're able to talk about this and have an open and honest conversation, we're going to see results, because we need digitization to be able to build the seed certification system we want in the future. It's not going to be the paper-based processes of today post CSGA certification work. That's not what's going to drive us forward. Digitization, which is going to unlock new tools, is really going to drive us forward.
Question actually just came in along the same vein of who owns the data. So, I don't know if you've had discussions on this, but, people put their info into the seed cert if this vision comes to fruition and you manage this data. And then who owns the data? Is that CSGA's data? I guess that's another another thing that has to be figured out too, I
And,
suppose.
and this is all what the Ag Data Transparency Certification is about. You know, what is the regulatory data that CSJ holds to be able to fulfill its mandate? You know, what is the voluntary value-added data that CSJ could collect in the future to be able to, you know, really make our digital tag foundation or software, you know, really best in class? There's going to be a distinction between those two. And when it comes to things that are voluntary, you know, that is data that is owned by the person that's putting it in there. They need to make sure they have that. But this is really the crux of the ag data transparency discussion. It's having these discussions as a value chain to say, hey, we need this kind of data to be able to drive our sector forward. How are we having that discussion in a very productive, open, and transparent manner? Again, we're a co-regulator. There's no ulterior motives here. It's again about how we can be able to leverage this digital system to be able to, again, realize that next generation seed system we've been talking about for at CSGA, at least for, I don't know, 6-7 years. And so we're at the precipice of being able to actually start to realize it. Let's have some open and honest conversations. Let's get there. Let's be transparent by default. Our door is always open. Let's chat.
And let's get to our next hot sauce. So we have habanero moonshine. This is based on the habanero pepper, which is hotter than both jalapeno and cayenne pepper. And supposedly this contains some PEI moonshine as well. So I guess somebody went bootlegging and got themselves some moonshine and put it in the hot sauce. So let's see here.
I kind of like the habanero as a pepper. I'm not going to lie to you. Never really had moonshine, but this one should be good.
All right. Cheers. Let's go.
It's kind of like it kind of comes at you from behind.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed we both have not got into our recovery things yet. We haven't had to break.
No, I have my I have some ice cream here.
Okay.
It's Tim Hortons Fruit Explosion. Maybe they'll give us like a retweet or something later. So Tim Hortons Fruit Explosion ice cream, everybody.
There we go. We found that rich uncle that we all needed in seed certification.
Yes.
Tim Hortons, if you're listening, we'll put Timbits in every application that we send out. every bag of seed now comes with some Timbits.
We love you, Tim Hortons. I drink your coffee all the time. All right. So we just had our fourth. Yeah, it is building. Okay, so CFIA asks in the survey, Doug, would you find value in the establishment of an advisory committee with balanced representation from across the value chain for the purpose of making recommendations and providing input and advice targeted towards the continuous improvement of Canada's seed system? Okay, so let me get some context before I get to this question. CSGA, you're promoting your idea for what you call the multi-stakeholder advisory committee.
Yeah.
So you say that this would be an advisory committee that just advises. There's no standard setting, no decision making. It's just an advisory committee. Now, this idea has some competition. Specifically, Seeds Canada is promoting its ISSB idea, what it calls the independent standard setting body. So we've got like these two different ideas. And I remember at first in the earlier discussions last year, and I know Seeds Canada expressed some concern that, well, CSGA's idea, this would be a CSGA committee, so it can't be impartial. And you have since clarified that, no, this would not be a CSGA committee. It would be, an impartial committee, according to you. So that's since been clarified. So Doug, why is this multi-stakeholder advisory committee, in your opinion, different enough from this ISSB idea to make it the way to go, in your opinion?
Yeah, Mark. So if you look back in the rearview mirror of our sector, we keep on coming time and time again up to this concept of an advisory committee. So, what we're talking about here through SRM, the establishment of an advisory committee is not a new concept. It's actually just the reiteration of previous ideas that we've been talking about for many years. our sector keeps on saying that we need a forum to be able to look forward, to be able to have continual improvement, to make sure that, you know, we have our head up looking where we're going as a sector. You know, I think if you look at any proposal that coming forward about having that kind of model, you know, there's going to be strong alignment across the board with that, you know, about, again, having that advisory committee concept. But whenever you start to peel the different proposals back from that initial statement about an advisor to be able to, you know, look where you're going to see drastically different concepts. And again, I don't at this point in time, don't really know what the actual proposal is for some alternatives. But again, we're looking for some clarity in the future. But our model is really about being able to work with existing structures, to be able that have, you know, provided value over the last 100 years and continue to provide value. You know, how can we find a way to be able to work with those ones to be able to improve them? So we're not looking to be able to dismantle existing systems, you know, or be able to again, we're looking at finding ways to be able to broaden the tent, you know, making sure that there's a forum for industry to be able to provide advisory services or advice to government and non-governmental entities on, you know, what the seed system of tomorrow looks, what it needs. Our model, what we're looking at here, is an organizational based model. So what we've done is taken some inspiration for what we see down at AOSCA, which is a standard setting body down in the US. And what they have is a really interesting model, which really had a genesis coming out of the 1960s, wherever Seed Trade came to AOSCA and said, you know, we want to be more involved in the standard setting process. And so again, this is something that has a lot of parallels to what we're talking about here in 2023, 2024. You know, so what we're looking at here is, you know, having organizations that have a vested interest in our seed certification system in Canada to be able to appoint representatives to be able to sit on this advisory committee. Again, we really wanted to be able to have it to be really lightweight. We don't want to see, you know, layers of bureaucracy kind of added onto it. We also don't want to see an organization like an industry advisory committee, you know, looking at standards. You know, CSGA has a best-in-class system that is well respected around the world for setting standards. You know, can we find a way to be able to work together, to be able to realize this next generation vision? And this is really about what we're trying to do is, you know, how do we find ways, again, to be able to broaden the tent? So, you know, I'd ask the problem of what we're actually trying to solve with an advisory committee. Is it value chain engagement? Our certification system right now and our standard setting process involves the whole value chain. You know, you don't have to look too far to see what we did for the forage industry recently, right? So we had a working group comprised of seed companies, seed growers, breeders, inspectors, seed analysts, even the users of the system, all coming together to be able to develop a standard that was working for them. And so our system has value chain engagement, and we want to be able to be more open. So we have a lot of initiatives on openness and transparency that we have underway. You know, are we having an issue around continual improvement? Well, at CSGA, our standards are reviewed on an annual basis. You know, the door is always open for any new standards or any revisions. Again, let's find ways to be able to work together. And it comes back to cost as well. Our system is very effective at bringing new standards to market. So again, what is the problem we're trying to solve? So I'd ask, you know, an advisory committee in the future to ask the questions. That's the question, simple question. You know, what's holding our sector and our industry back from reaching its full potential? I can assure you that CSJ standards are not at the top of that list or even close. And the people that say that they have a problem with that probably haven't even looked at our standards. Looking at a crop like soybeans, huge value driver for our sector. Standards are less than a page. Those standards aren't impacting progress. Again, we're open to having constructive dialogue with the sector about the standards that they'd be able to need. So again, let's focus on what's holding us back versus anything else that may be going on.
All right, sauce 5 out of 9. Here we go. So next up, we have the candied habanero.
Okay, we got to start picking up speed here, I guess, eh?
We had the candied jalapeno. So now we're going to do the candied habanero, and let's see what happens here. All right. Cheers.
Oh yeah, that's a goodie.
Yeah, that's They're definitely getting a little bit hotter now. I don't know if it's maybe not ice cream right away, but we'll see. Okay. So Form 300, Doug. This one's gonna get a little bit technical. CFIA survey puts out the idea of CFIA taking over Form 300 to become part of a crop listing framework. For those who don't know, Form 300 allows crops that are not subject to variety registration it allows them to be multiplied in Canada, to be grown as seed. It's a process that they have to go through. That's the simple version. But according to your survey responses, you actually agree with CFIA taking it over. That's a bit different. You've been talking about CSGA taking on stuff from CFIA. Under this proposed, or under the survey anyway, what CFIA is talking about, they would be taking Form 300 from you. They're asking people how they feel about that. So how do you, I keep talking with people about Form 300, and they like the way it works now. That's what I've heard, that, yeah, we like CSGA handling Form 300. And so, like, if people kind of like the way it is now, why is CSGA more or less on board with giving that to CFIA? Because that seems contrary to you taking on things from CFIA. You'd be giving this up. So why are you on board with that?
Yeah, so just to clarify, Mark, this is actually a proposal that CSGA put in, right? So this is a proposal that we introduced back into the SRM process back in last June. And, why are we doing this? Because we feel that this is the right thing to do. So with the Form 300, we actually have a parallel system to variety registration, which if you strip them all back, why do both of these systems exist? It's to be able to recognize the identity of a variety. So we had to create the Form 300 process back when corn came out of variety registration. At the time, variety registration was not flexible, and it was not the variety registration of today. Again, what we're talking about here is, and I'm remiss to bring up variety registration because we've had conversations over the last month with the sector. And, what we don't want to see is this Form 300, going back into variety registration. I think that's not in anyone's best interest. But, we believe that the appropriate role of government when it comes to seed certification and one of their core functions should be the recognition of varieties for certification. So again, we're looking at creating a crop listing framework that would be administered by the CFIA outside of variety registration. So, how can we keep the same construct of Form 300, keep it lightweight, not reintroducing things like merit, but, how can we have the CFIA, again, what we feel is the right thing to do with them recognizing the variety system. We're looking at simplifying the system. We're looking at reducing redundancy, duplications. For us, this is a prime area of where we can streamline. And again, we talked about, CSJ taking on administrative roles so we could free up CFI to do only things that they should and can do. We feel that this is definitely one. So again, SRM is about taking that step back, thinking about things in a holistic manner. And we would like to see this go over to CFIA and crop listing framework. This is going to be really important if through the SRM process that more crop kinds have a clear pathway out of seed certification, out of variety registration. This is going to be required for those crop kinds to ensure that there's still a pathway to that. We know the sector likes the turnaround times. They like the fee that we currently charge. So through this process, if you like that, we should also be advocating for, improved timelines in VRO in general, improved timelines around this framework. And so for us, this is an ongoing conversation. If we're right in our one pager, we talk about contingency planning. If this is not coming to fruition, then we would work with CFIA to be able to get that authority or be able to clarify the responsibilities for CSGA around that role. We're even open to providing administrative services to try to maintain those timelines. And so again, it comes down to doing the right thing here, which is sometimes tough, and having an open conversation with stakeholders about what this could mean. So again, we're open for conversations around this one.
All right, next sauce, we've got run number 6 of 9 here. So we are nearing the end. It's coming, but we've got a few more questions. So thanks again to our audience for spending your lunch hour with us. We appreciate your time. Next up, we have Maritime Madness Hot Sauce. This is habanero, but again, this one's got some more of that moonshine in it that I mentioned earlier. So my tongue is still burning from the last one, so we'll see how this one does. So
I'm not looking forward to these next ones. I just applied some lip chap there. I've heard that does protect your lips. Taste buds are on their own today, but if we're able to keep the lips all
that's what they say.
here.
Exactly. Cheers.
Cheers, Mark.
Yeah, okay. It's getting up there now. All right.
I actually found the last one hotter than that one. But
yeah, well, it's hard to tell after a while because it gets hot and then you eat another hot one on top of it. So, okay. So, Doug, the CFIA Winter Survey mentions the possibility of an alternative service delivery arrangement with CSGA for certain tasks normally done by CFIA. So, for example, CSGA would be the main administrator of seed certification. Now, people have been balking at this for a while. I've heard criticisms that, we can't have a single stake. Oh, are you there, Doug?
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It looks like your webcam cut out, but that's okay.
I'm still alive. I'm here.
You can turn your webcam off. We'll see your standing by icon. But so I've heard people balk at, people say we can't have a single stakeholder group in charge of seed certification, that's, not objective. They don't like that idea. So Doug, how do you respond to that? Why is CSGA advocating for taking this on?
Sorry, Mark. Can you see me now? Let's see.
No, it just says imaging edge webcam, but that's okay. If you can actually try turn it off, we'll just see your little icon. That's all right.
Yeah. So the question is, can you repeat that?
Yeah. How do you respond to CSGA? How do you respond to that? Why is CSGA advocating for this? People say we can't have a single stakeholder group in charge of seed certification in Canada. They say it's not objective. They don't like that idea. So how do you respond to that?
Yeah, so I would respond to say that CSGA in our role, like we're a co-regulator, right? So this to say that a single stakeholder group is trying to seize control of the sector would be, or of seed certification would be, not a valid view of what we're trying to do here. As an organization, we have 120 years behind our belt of being a trusted service provider to the sector in terms of our regulatory function. When we look at alternative service delivery, and again, this is something I'd like to clarify, is that CSGA is not a current alternative service provider. The services that we provide we do so through a delegated authority. And so when we look towards the future, it's all about, an evolution of the current system. So when we look towards the future with what we're talking about here, it's about prioritizing a simpler seed certification system, being able to use digital tools. And from where we sit and from from what we hear from a lot of people, CSG is at this point the only logical option of being able to realize this, modern seed certification system. We have the strong foundation in terms of our staff that are highly competent in seed and seed certification. We have that digital tool, And so let's be able to, leverage that. As an organization, we also want to be more open and transparent about how we go about our business. So in the last month, we had open calls for applications for seed companies, seed inspectors, seed analysts to be able to join our regulatory services committee. This is the type of work that we're trying to do to be able to have a conversation about how we can continue to build that open and inclusive seed certification that we've been talking about for the last number of years. And so, we're prepared to step up here through SRM. We put out some big, ambitious visions. But again, we think that we're the only organization at this point that's able to really help drive that vision forward. But again, we cannot do it alone. We need the help of the sector. We need strong grassroots participation, and we need collaboration across all sector players.
All right, we got 3 more sauces to go here. Number 7 of 9. We're going to do now the simple ghost pepper. This is going to be interesting because I've heard about ghost peppers, and I've never actually had a ghost pepper before. And so I'm hoping that this isn't going to be too crazy. And so, yeah, let's do this, Doug. I can't see it, but that's okay because I know you're there with your hot sauce. Ah, there you are. Look
There
at
we
that.
go. I can answer questions and do tech support at the same time.
You
that
can
goes
get like
trust, right? If he can do it all, we should be able to, trust CSGA to be able to take this next loop.
You can moonlight at Best Buy. They drive those little cars around, the Geek Squad. You could get like a part-time job, and that's what they call them, the Geek Squad. You see those little cars going around. So, all right, let's try the sauce here. Simple ghost pepper. I'm a little bit scared of this one now, but we'll see how it does. Cheers.
Cheers. Ooh. Sorry, Mark, I'm falling behind here.
Yeah, that has a little bit of heat to it. But hey.
Ooh. So
yeah,
like these next couple ones, what inspires someone to put this into a bottle?
I don't know. And yeah, to even put that on your food at dinner time or wow. Okay. Okay, so Doug, there's lots of people, a lot of them are private seed industry people who question the whole idea of variety registration. They want to see it gone. They say, why aren't we talking about getting rid of variety registration? And there's lots of people who are happy with variety registration. You and I have done interviews about this before where you have said for 30 years, we've been talking about variety registration. And for 30 years, people have overwhelmingly said we like variety registration. But, just because a lot of people are happy with the way things are, that's not necessarily a reason not to change it. I mean, it's human nature. It's easy. We'll keep things the same. We'd like it the way it is. And so you got these two groups of people. We want to get rid of variety registration. We like variety registration. So why in this instance is CSGA advocating for keeping variety registration and what some people see as the status quo?
Yeah. Variety registration is a hot topic button. I told you 2 weeks ago that there's certain things you talk at the dinner table. You don't talk about the dinner table. Politics, religion, and variety registration. There's different camps on this one, but I think it's really important to understand that the variety registration that we have today is very different than the variety registration system that we had back in 1997. It's flexible, and it provides a pathway for crop kinds that want to move in the different tiers to be able to get the value chain together, get consensus, and move. What we're talking about as part of SRM is providing a framework for crop kinds to even have even more flexibility. So what we would like to see is, and what we are advocating for as part of the SRM process, is a variety registration system that is flexible and continues to meet the needs of modern agriculture. So whenever we think about variety registration, it's really understanding that, again, it is different than what it used to be. It's flexible, And for crop kinds in the future, when we start looking at incorporation by reference used for Schedule 3, that's going to provide a lot more flexibility for the value chain. So we think that, when we look at the cascading effect impacts of registration, there's a lot of things there that it provides a solid foundation for, the tie-ins to the grain sector, tie-ins to, just more transparency around what we're growing in Canada. Huge value propositions of those pieces. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. What we've heard from stakeholders is that the existing system is not broken, but we need to be able to tweak it and improve it. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with the things like variety registration. So it's not status quo, but it's being able to take the flexible foundation that whenever they built it, whenever they modernized it recently, they put in this flexibility into it. Let's be able to capitalize on that. But again, not lose sight of the fact of the valuable underpinnings that it provides the whole Canadian ag sector.
All right, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There you go. All right, we're going to do our next one now. This is the second last. This is a scary one. This is it's called the Ultimate Giver. And this is going to be getting hot now, supposedly, because second last, my mouth is burning from the last one. But this one should be even worse. This is the Ultimate Giver. So, all right. Cheers, sir.
Yeah, no, this is not great. Okay, cheers.
Okay. Oh boy, yeah. This one has the Carolina Reaper pepper in it. So, okay.
It's a time release in the back.
Yeah,
it's not forward. It's in the back.
Second last, we got one more to go, and that's supposedly the king of the hot sauces.
Oh,
okay. So, Doug, I want to talk about this elephant in the room, Seeds Canada, CSGA. There's kind of rift between the two of them since the merger didn't work out, and assuming CSGA takes the helm of our seed certification system and possibly other things, does CSGA have any real desire to try and heal that rift? And if so, how do we do that? Doug, what do you think? I mean, Seeds Canada and CSGA aren't going to be going on vacation together anytime soon. How do we start to heal this rift that some people see in our industry?
Wow, that's a 12-bar question there, Mark. That's full.
That's the ultimate. Well, not quite the ultimate, but yeah, it's getting there.
Yeah. So I will say this. That we view Seeds Canada as an invaluable partner. When we look towards the future, when we look at what a next generation seed system looks like in Canada, it has a strong Seeds Canada. And we've talked about this over the last number of years, Mark. Is that doesn't mean there is no CSGA, or that what our seed sector needs is a strong Seeds Canada and a strong CSGA, all working together on the areas that they can provide the biggest value to our sector. So it's not a them or us. It's all about how we can come together and play to our strengths. When I look at what we've been able to accomplish as a sector over the last number of years, I think that's really a testament to two organizations that are trying and striving for excellence in their respective areas and doing it. Would I be doing this webinar where I'm eating this wings and subjecting myself to maybe some serious health consequences? Probably not. But again, it's each organization pushing each other to be better. And I think our sector is going to be better off for it. But again, we need to have two organizations that have, we not agree on everything. But if we can agree on the table stakes to be able to drive our sector forward, again, this is where our sector is really going to see tremendous value. So for us, there some people may see a rift, but I think two organizations, really taking seed certification and SRM seriously, our door is open. We want to be able to move forward in a collaborative manner. So we're just a phone call away. But I'd say that, when I look into the future, it's really about two organizations that are really focused on where they can provide the biggest positive impact, helping to drive us forward. And again, it's not an if or us or them kind of discussion. It's like, how do we get there together? And you can look around the world and you can see various incidents, various examples of how this has really worked well. And so let's come to the table. Let's have some conversations about how we can drive the sector forward. And I think we'll all be better off for it.
All right, last question and last hot sauce. This is the ridiculously hot sauce. It's called From Maritime Madness, Doug. And so, yeah, let's give this one a go. This is their hottest sauce. And we got one more question here. Thanks again to our audience for spending your lunch hour with us. And so, yeah, let's give this a go. This one should be interesting. It's thick, eh? You gotta.
Is this really the one we had to sign the waiver for? No, just joking.
Yeah, right. They didn't. That would have been a nice little marketing tool, actually, if they would have sent the waiver over.
All right.
Okay. Oh, I want to make sure I get a decent amount of this. Okay, that should be good. All right.
All right. Cheers, Mark. I'm cheersing you.
Cheers.
The camera here. I apologize for the technical difficulties.
Oh boy, this is gonna be hot.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Oh.
Okay, so Doug, CSGA is an alternative service provider. This question came in. I'm just going to read it as written. CSGA is an alternative service provider, and no one has suggested that providing seed certification services should be taken away from CSGA. So, why is CSGA so adamant about keeping standard setting within your own governance, where only seed growers can vote on important matters, even considering the proposed change to your membership structure that you have talked about recently? Just to put that in context, you're proposing adding a couple of new membership classes so that non-seed growers can be part of CSGA. Yeah. And so, yeah, what's your response to that? Why are you so adamant about keeping standard setting within your own governance for only seed growers have a voice on important matters, according to this person?
Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
So I heard different words there before I blacked in and out of consciousness on this one. First word I heard was alternative service delivery. Clarification: CSJ is not an alternative service delivery agent. We are not an inspection service. We are not, Seeds Canada, formerly CSI. We are a co-regulator with the government of Canada. So kind of the nuances there are really important there. That again, we're a co-regulator. We're not this. We're not an alternative service delivery. So let's clarify that misinformation here, because any position that's built on that is built on a house of cards. So let's get away from that. The next question is about CSGA standards. Oh,
yeah, it's bad.
CSGA. So a lot of folks may think that CSGA standards are set by a bunch of seed growers getting together, eating hot sauce, taking out their Dakota rings and tinfoil hats and doing that. Couldn't be further from the truth. It's actually the whole value chain coming together to have a conversation about what we need. So when people say it's just seed growers, that is a gross misrepresentation of what actually happens. Forage consultations that just happened. We had almost every forage seed company. We had crop inspectors. We had everyone coming together. It was beautiful, Mark. That's our future, coming together to focus on seed certification. And when we look towards the future,
I'm just blowing my nose. Yeah. I figure people don't want to see that.
When we look towards the future, it's about having an organization that has a laser focus on seed certification. That's where we think that we can provide the best value moving forward. And that's why we want to make sure that there is a pathway for people that don't feel that they have a seat around the table, that they can have a seat around the table. And so I encourage folks to read about our standards development process online. We've also released a document that outlines, the roles and responsibilities around standards setting at CSJ, which I think is really important for this conversation. Read that. But again, we want to be able to bring everyone together to have a conversation around seed certification. And it has been an authority that, a delegated authority that we have had from the government for over 100 years. We take great pride in it. We spend, thousands of hours working on it every year. And so again, if you want to be involved, get involved. We reached out to different organizations to say, help us spread the news about the Regulatory Services Committee. Some jumped all over it. The inspection services were all over it. The seed analysts were all over it, but not everyone was. So again, we're trying to be open. We're trying to be transparent by default. But again, people need to be able to have an open conversation about how they can get involved, because your seed is waiting for you. Like, we literally have social media posts saying, hey, come help us work on standards. Come help us steer the direction of our organization. So again, we're open. We're trying to extend all the branches, but again, we need two to tango. So let's tango here, and let's build that next generation seed system that we need.
Oh, all right. Yeah, that was a bad one. Okay, well, Doug, I don't know about you, but I'm gonna go dunk my head in ice water right away, because my mouth is on fire. But no, this was great. This was an interesting experience, and thank you to our audience for tuning in. Thank you, Doug, for doing this hot sauce thing with me. It definitely kept things interesting. And yeah, this webinar was recorded and it'll be available on our website, like we say, in the coming hours, seedworld.com/Canada. Doug, thanks so much again. To our audience, don't forget to fill out the SRM survey from CFIA. CSGA's responses you can have a look at on their website. I think that's up on the screen right now. And yeah, so thanks again, Doug. This was really fun. For people who didn't register, they'll get this webinar on demand too, and they can check out all the information. And so thank you, Doug. This was really fun. I think I might like to do this again one day. You never know. So this is a new concept for me. Thanks a lot, Doug. Go cool off, and we'll chat again soon. Thank you, everyone. This is Mark Sienkiewicz signing off. Doug, have a great day, sir.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye for now.